All right, now we're working with block-in and we're working with the core shadow step. So you've seen it in the shorter version video. For those of you that want to go longer, I'm going to work on different processes in drawing so you see how that works with, in this particular case, additive, subtractive, and charcoal. So I've got charcoal sticks, I've got the chamois, the chamois, and I've got charcoal pencils. And we're going to tone down now a piece of white paper to make it more tonal. And then we're going to chamois it back. You've seen this before if you've seen the basic section, for those of you that are in YouTube land, and then for those of you that are my students, you've done this several times, so you've seen this quite a bit. And we'll just take a charcoal stick and we'll tone this down, give it a little tonal atmosphere. And again, when I'm here at the university teaching figure drawing classes, those of you my students know this, is that quite often we do additive, subtractive, charcoal when we're working with charcoal. And there's one strong reason why, and the biggest one is, quite frankly, you can get a more atmospheric tonal rendering with a minimal amount of effort, number one. And number two, it just seems to kind of hide some of the difficulty more beginning students to the figure have with drawing the model with charcoal right on that very stark piece of white paper. So that kind of hides that a little bit. I had that problem when I was a beginning student with the figure, and then when I moved to Los Angeles to train there, that was hard at Art Center in the beginning. So that's one thing I would have changed about my education, is to ease into it with Progresso, which most of you have seen already. All right, so we've got a tonal now piece of paper, and I'll pop up the image, blow this off a little bit. I'll pop up the image now of the model, and we'll start to it. Now you could use charcoal stick. I would rather you use charcoal pencil to begin your linear lay-in. So the biggest key is going to be to learn that as we block in now and separate light from dark, you won't be doing it additively by blocking in the shadows or mopping in the shadows. You'll be doing it with the light to get the light and the shadow together. And then of course we'll add core shadow. So let's work on now line lay-in and composition of our model. So we've got a reclining pose, roughly back pose, nice tilt, arched this way with the head. So let's work on composition a little bit. You know, another thing I tell my students about composition and placement, because they have a devil of a time sometimes, is that if you have a model with the head at the highest point of the pose, which this is because the arms or the hands or the fingers, whatnot, are not above the head, place the head relatively very high up so you can feel more of the space of the model. That's going to be very important. So let's lay in the head now. Let's get her head laid in. And you can crop some too. I might crop a little bit. Composition is challenging. It's one of the overarching aspects of drawing that you want to begin to work with and master. So we've got the oval now, the head, as I'll start to lay in that. She's got, of course, that hair up in a bun. So we can kind of feel the bun a little bit later, and then it'll go pretty high up here. Make sure I'm in the camera. Yeah, we're in the camera, so we're pretty pulled out pretty good. So just to indicate that bun in through their hairline, in through side plane of the head, which will all be in later on, of course, in shadow, which this already is. The value of the paper acts as mostly a shadow tone and reflected light, so you just, quite frankly, don't have to work as hard to build up value. So that's part of the key of all this too as well. So I'm going to get the full oval even behind where her chin would be hidden, back coming down in through here. So let's start to feel the gesture now of that and go a little faster. I take a little bit more time with the head often because it's such the icon, so sometimes I'll draw more of it in than I would for a gesture. So we'll just get the gingerly place in the ears here, and then roughly they'll be about right in through here, leaning down and over a bit, through, over and downward, something like that. So we'll feel now her gesture here of the shoulder to shoulder, here and through here. Arm will start to come out. I'll probably wind up cropping a little bit of the hand, it looks like, just to get a nice full size, which is okay. In through here. So we're going to feel the volume of that, feel the neck gesture coming down with her here. You can see those trapezius muscles and erector spinae muscles that come up to the spine, up to the cervical part of the neck, in through here. Through here, just get the gesture of that, through and through there, shoulder, like so. Okay. And then we have the shoulder and through to get that kind of almost like a cylinder across, if you will. All right, so now gesture of the spine coming through really takes me on a journey over here. Working the lima beam now, really pushed over. Look how far that's tilting this way. And over, more contracted. Have an oval and through here, really oval-like through. So I'm taking great pains not to make a major outline yet, but I'm just feeling those outline structures too as I work my gesture here, work my gesture over to the elbow, maybe a little bit longer. Okay, and then gesture now of the buttock region where she's tilted, weight leaning on the right buttock over. Okay, working in lima beam and through, and here and over. Okay, coming down and through and over. And sitting down this way. Okay. Spine coming through now nicely and lower, and everything is going to be in shadow there. So we're going to put on a little bit now the girth of the hip buttock region over on this side. And then we'll come up with the knee gesture here over, okay, and then elbow sitting on the thigh. Maybe a little bit longer and through there. Just mark that and change, looking at this negative space too as well in between. That's going to come up to the elbow here, and then out a little for her there, up to the leg, thigh. Most of that's going to be in lights. Okay. Working her over now. Padded part of the back part of the thigh, a little extra part on it. Back thigh sherry, then a little bit of a hollow there where gravity sucks it down to here. So we're going to feel this. A little bit more of a diagonal of that straight line under the buttock. We've made that more of a diagonal here, and we're going to come through here. Okay. As I'll get comfortable with that line, I'll make a little bit more of an incised line through thigh. And then a little bit of the, I'm going to feel this calf, soleus gastrocnemius here, just a little bit over there, so I'll feel that through a little bit. Okay. Coming over, I want to split that buttock now. Find this, the end of the sacrum, which is about right here where the butt crack ends. It's about the only way I can think of that. Split of the glutes, butt crack. There we go. Through here, coming over, really getting tension on through there, up and through. Erector spinae area. Fullness, and then we've got now the other buttock through here. It needs to be a little fuller actually, my viewpoint, about right through there actually, coming over. And split through here. Okay, up and through. And then lower. Make those changes, don't be afraid. You can chamois back if you don't like, if I didn't like what I did, but see, right off, change it Take that out and over. See, the chamois becomes the eraser and the eraser becomes the light, which is a wonderful, I think, wonderful technique to have in through here. There we go. I feel like that glows better. Dimple through there for the sacral area. Feeling that spine. Okay, so we've got this glute. Now it's going to be folded a little bit because now we're getting some great foreshortening happening, which makes the pose, I think, really interesting here. So we get this lean, and so we get this gesture up and over. So we get this almost straight diagonal line of the outline of her leg as it is in foreshortening about right in through here. Now it's going to get curved later on. Then we can feel the height horizontally bringing the line over where that's going to fit in, probably about right in through here. And then we'll get the tilt of the box of her thigh and over. Patella-ish region in through there. And then thigh muscles really bulged, and then they're going to die back in through here and then kind of bulge back out the upper area. Okay, and then we're going to get a little bit of flattening here across the thigh. You don't see a whole lot of that yet, but we'll get in there. So it's going to flatten there and then come back over to really the beginning of the end of the knee and then to the beginning of the tibia, fibula region, and calf. So we're getting a little bit more confident now with the lay-in. Here, I'm going to pull this down now since here I can bring the camera there. There we go. Okay, let's pull the camera in a little bit so the composition's fairly set. There we go. That's going to make it better. Get a little the closer you can get, generally better. There we go. I think that feels better for everybody as we work in through here, getting the bigger generalities now. Hip area. Really pushing her over, and this is where that rib cage really dives in, right in through there. So a few more minutes, and we will have enough of our lay-in to begin to lay in the shadow shapes for our additive subtractive lay-in, and the block-in becomes strategically easier and more luminescent. I love it. I love that word, luminescent, and also, quite frankly, more atmospheric than we would get in the same amount of time with the with just additive on a white sheet of paper, or even if we were going additive on a dark sheet of paper, you were drawing more just with the light in through here. So we have the upper area of the scapula to the clavicle, the back, and then trapezius over. You can see where it kind of makes that little dimple, the scapula area, and then start the trapezius up. It flattens a little bit, and then it comes up and over to her back of her neck, cervical region, a beautiful region in through there, really lovely with the hair pulled up and through there. So we have that. It's like a kind of a blocky tube at this point. I'm coming back to get that and through there. Okay, you come over, get that region. That'll be a softer line as we erase later on. Make that a little bit harder because the neck, there's also part of the sternocleidomastoid muscle right in through up in here too as well, with the ear right behind the ear, the mastoid process. There we go. Coming over, just getting the contouring of that trapezius up to the shoulder deltoid coming up in front and being a little bit lifted. Kind of almost around, but not quite a circle, and over. And coming through now and over, getting into the little bit of the musculature there. I really want to get us over to the arm here, and then find its simple start, and then really understand its simple volume. Coming through, looking at the negative space, and through here looks pretty good. And through here. And up and through. get that space where she's the end of the waist into the bulge of to the oblique and onto the major oblique part of the buttock and glute. Here we go, a little bit more. That's really going to bulge, really gets arched. That's a lot of tension right in through there. All right, so now we can find our elbow, our gesture here, about roughly in through there. Coming over, just the tube-like quality, a little pulled back now. Okay. And then this is going to feel like a blocky tube here with the olecranon area, or just the epicondyles of the elbow coming back and over. And I'm just going to feel it like a tube, bulgy, and then it tapers down after the tricep, and we'll get that bulge in a moment. So I'm just feeling the straighter part of it for now. And then coming on out, hopefully having just enough room maybe to get most of her in. If not, don't fudge it. Another mistake I see students make here at school, at the university, is they'll try to fit something on the page, and it's going well proportionally, and then as it comes closer to the page, they'll start to shrink it, and part of the figure becomes a little pygmy. So we have to watch that and be careful just to stay with the portion and let it crop out composition. If it happens, that's okay. Just let it crop out, but don't change the proportion to fit it in. You just have to crop it and go with it. You know, go look at your Degas for great cropping. It's kind of the beginning, first excellent cropper of figurative works, primarily because photography was starting to come into full artistic display and practice in the late 19th century, early 20th, late 19th. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. It's okay. Now, so we're coming over and we're getting to arch back through. Now, where do we end the hand? So if you put a straight line on her buttock where it's touching the most contacted area and across, that's going to get us to almost where the fingers kind of bend. That's kind of where I'm thinking. So the actual finger extension of the end of the fingers would be probably here. Let's see how I do. Okay. As long as I get the length right, if I miss out a little bit, I'm okay with it. I never get much perfect. I don't really care about being perfect unless I can get a good drawing going. Yeah, or an excellent drawing going. So through here, and something we don't really tell you is that you don't have to get these exact. I think a lot of people think that's you have to get it exact, but sometimes you alter and you make it better than that which you see. I think that takes a while for some people to get. Maybe not, I don't know. So I'm going to come up here and get that deltoid ending and the tricep that are kind of together in this view. There's no strong division in and out and over, and then bulge of the forearm muscles of the flexors and extensors, and coming down to the wrist, which is a little bit blocky, and over. And then the bulge of the palm area. It looks like I'm going to be pretty close there. And the fingers look like they might, one or two might get cropped out a little bit. I'm okay with that. So thumb gesture in through here and over, and then through in here and around, something like that. And then the other fingers I'll just gesture in here, and then the bend and over and out, and then over and through. So they'll just be off a little bit. That might be okay compositionally. And I'll get the shape of the shadow, this cast shadow from her body. So we know that the light source is from the left, up above and in front of her a little bit, because the shadow is going back. Now there's a couple of little shadow things going on compositionally. And we have this cast shadow on the white surface from her buttock, her glutes, and then coming over, which is pretty strong. And see how it goes back and through here, and that's just the stronger one. Then I have two lights actually. And then the other one is starting to pull back a little bit. See how it kind of comes through the thumb about right there. There's another cast shadow light, and then the cast shadow. This is all from her body. And then we have another, you kind of get one under here a little bit too, under the thigh. I'll just gently put it in. I might even would have taken that out. Then you get another, the ending of that shadow about right in through here, between the thigh and the forearm, going back a little more like that, a little bit flatter like that. And of course you get the end of the wall kind of right in through here. I'll add that just a little bit for effect in through there. And then let's clean up now the top of the drawing, and also this arm over here. And I think we're just about ready for our lay-in of our shadow shapes, so we can get to our blocking in and core shadows. So we get this eggier form here, tricep, a little bit of fat hanging off that, not much, but just a little bit to let it swing lower for gravity, and then the elbow condyle here of the humerus and tibiofibula coming over here, and where it comes back in, brachioradialis, or just the forearm muscle. And I'm just going to end it there for now, and then we'll catch this coming back up to a little bit of the bicep and tricep region in through here, and then we're kind of on our way. Let's check out now the lower part of the rib cage here on this side, up and through. Okay, and then rib cage coming in. This is when I'm going to turn, and we'll get those shadow shapes in a moment to really give us that structure, because light and shadow shapes, when done properly, can also give us a nice hint of structure and working volumetrically too as well. So we get a bulge there, and we get a major bulge here coming in, and then we get this straighter area right through there as it attaches over and through, like so. Okay. A little bit more curvy, a little bit heavier with the thigh, make that a little fuller. A nice position. In that foot would be, is it going to make it in? I don't think the heel will make it in. That's okay. All right, so now what I want to do, I think I've got everything I need there. To get the rest of the structure, as I'm talking a little bit, I'll work on this head just a little bit further, this head bob up in through here, the wrap up in through here. We'll start to talk about the next step, which is going to be lay-in of shadow shape and then block in with our eraser to get the light and shadow to separate nicely in through here. So a little bit of the ear coming in through. I'm just going to lay in just gingerly back the ear, just a touch. We'll get more of that. Then this is where about the brow is in through here, and then we get a dive in with the cheekbone and then over, and then we get that taken away from the cropping up and through. All right, so shadow shapes. Let's lay in the shadow shapes. So we're going to start with the neck. We get a little bit of the split between the two here. We don't get a whole lot, but there'll be a little shadow in through there. First thing I'm going to start with, which is more obvious, is this deltoid area. And we're just going to keep this general, where it's a very two-dimensional way of thinking. So meaning that we're looking for kind of a graphic language of shapes to find. And we'll work on the edges as we mop in or block in, or in this case erase out, and make that more natural. So think of it two-dimensionally, more like a graphic novelist or comic book artist or visual designer, visual communication designer. We have a lot of those. I teach a lot of those majors here as well. So we have that shadow shape where the light ends, the shadow begins, that shape coming down, finding where it truly falls, its graphic kind of nature through here, forearm out and up and over. We're going to get a cast shadow on the legs. So you want to group them all together. Form shadows and cast shadows down the thigh, in through here. Okay, we find that and over and around. A little form shadow, cast shadow where the thigh buckles into the tilt, into the lift of the leg. That's going to turn this way a little bit. We'll get that. We'll get a little extra in through there, and then we'll get the ending of the thigh. Take that. That's a major shadow shape. Now we'll come over and we'll see the form shadow on this thigh down here and through here. Okay, back and over, and it's a softer form shadow, so I give it a little bit of a linear kind of this sort of contouring around just to soften up the approach. The type of eraser I'm going to use, the kneaded eraser, is really going to help with that versus a hard-edged eraser. You have to be careful what type of erasers you use. So we'll get now the form shadow of the buttock, because remember the light source is coming from the left and somewhat out in front of her over this way. Okay, so shining up where my hands are, down in front of her. We know that because the cast shadow of her buttock is going back this way. Okay. All right, so now we can get shadow shape here, which is going to give us our structure to form. And then now we're coming up the back, the erector spinae muscles, which gets more complex with the spine, because you're going to see major divots and underchanges as we go through. Now we're coming up the spine. Okay, the left erector spinae muscles, iliocostalis, spinalis, and the longissimus. Through here, those three muscles in the trapezius part, up and through, and this is going to break off a little bit right in through here, so it's a shadow shape. So right in through here, and it's going to break off a little bit. We're going to come up and find a little bit of the scapula right in through here. I'll probably have this a little long, so I can take that back. Just go boop, take it off a little bit, come back in through. In through here and over, and then we have that little shape or little bump for the scapula, and over. We get this shape of the back coming in through here, okay, and downward and around. Just figuring out these spinal shapes because the light's hitting from the left, and we know we get this ridge. So this bumps up and over the spine, so we're going to get this shape in through here. Okay, most of the time you can get a lot. Sometimes you can't. You just leave it for, okay, when I get more specific, really get specific, deeper into the drawing, we can go back and get some of that more deeply. So we get this little opening of shadow shape, a little light where the divot of this spine or the spinous processes sit, or the cavity of the spine comes back up to the right side, and we get that light in through there, and then we can go find these shadow shapes gently right in through here, kind of a triangular shape, finding those shadow shapes to work with. Okay, it's always a little harsh for me. I like to give it just a little contouring. So we've got that. Going to fill that buttock a little bit further, and we'll go get this major shadow grouping right in through here underneath the scapula to the lat area, and then over, and see how that's starting to come together, starting to read for us in through there. And then now we'll come over and we'll catch the arm. Not a lot under here, but over here we have a form shadow on this side because the light source is to the left. Okay, we're feeling this over and through, and then downward to the elbow, like so. Okay, I say that a lot, like so. I had somebody from the UK tell me that the other day in an email. I thought that was funny. It was really great. And so we have that. Thank you for out there. I think her name was Nicoletta. Thank you for that. You gave me a good laugh. I love when you get pointed out what you do repetitively. It's like, hey, I do say that. It's hilarious. Okay, and then we have a little bit of shadow separation in the forearm down to the wrist and over to the hand, and then most of the rest of that is going to be light, and then shadow there. Pretty simple. And so we're pretty much relatively now, I think, on our way, except for the hair. Let me come back and say, okay, with that wrap, let's get this shadow shape here. In through, keep it real simple, come back and get this wrap up and through here. Hopefully my head's not too much in the way, and over. We can get that shape and then really work on that a little bit and through there. So this is no different from really the basic section of the still life that I've done with that, with additive subtractive. All right, so now we're ready for our block in. So let's go to our erasers and let's work to block in this model, and then we'll add our core shadows. All right, so now let's go ahead and block in. So we're going to block in or mop in by extracting the light from the equation. So we've laid in our shadow shapes, and now we're going to look at how that works in a little bit different way than just the additive part of blocking. So I'll go ahead and start. I've got kneaded erasers here, a kneaded eraser, that small, that gummy small eraser that you have, that you use. You can pull it apart. It's wonderful to use and clean up a little bit, and then you can pull it apart and use smaller areas or keep it big. But I use this generally on my first initial pass of line because it's such a soft erasing tool, okay? And so now as I start to take the light out, I can do it very gently within the structure of what we're doing and very kind of broadly, and it doesn't give me a real strong edge. It's kind of very painterly in the beginning, and you see how that blocks out quite nicely. And I can keep it, you know, the more pressure I push on, the more I can take off, and then the less pressure I use on, the less I take off. So we can get a very general sense of it, and also a very quick block in, or a mop in this case, if you want, by doing that. Also, I like to use the kneaded eraser because it's kind of blunt, it's painterly, and I can also think about stroke pattern. So running the eraser across now the neck of the model in the drawing here, and getting kind of that painterly approach, and taking great pains to be very gentle with the stroke and also the value. I don't want to take off too much generally too quickly. And I don't want to make it too contrasty because I can always come back and work the detail in the light later on, which is so important. So we just want to get that sense of that beautiful separation between the light side of the model and the darker side, where the shadow and the light come together. Very general kind of sense. You can see that that begins to run in quite nicely. Watch that edge. And it's again our first pass, and then we'll come back and we'll start to add our coarse shadow to that process. So working my way down the model, notice I'm kind of giving this sort of contouring stroke, because it is essentially a tube working around, you know, the model. So that's how I'm thinking about when I erase out with this particular technique and this style of drawing, which is more academic and traditional. I'll think of it quite as very much form, lots of form and form changes. So let's continue on working on down the back. And again, I want to, this is important too, to separate this drawing into really two sides, a light side and a darker side. So let's take something then like our background, and we can go ahead and do that back here. We've done that before. I'm just going to take a little bit off so I can get the contrast between the model's head and that background tone of the image to read a little bit through here. We can keep that nice and soft in this part. See how that starts to, on camera it's even a little bit more contrasted than it is on my tabletop here. So we can start to see that begin to work for us. And we could even come around now on the other side a little bit too and begin to see that first, and also work atmosphere very quickly into the drawings. A lot of students will leave this, or beginner types will leave this pretty to the end. You want to work a drawing pretty holistically really early, especially with these kind of techniques. Later on you can break all the rules. I'm very much an advocate for rule breaking when you know all the rules. If you don't, it makes rule breaking a little harder, doesn't it? It's like, I don't know what the rules are that I'm breaking, and so you generally wind up with something a little bit more confusing. So let's work down the back now of the model in the image and also in the drawing. So we're contouring a little bit this way, taking great pains to take this off. So the contrast is good here, and we're going to get that with our value in our paper, but we don't want to take off too much and blister it. We can ease into this. We just want to separate and make it clear for our eye, the shadow side from the lighter side. Right in through here we have a little shape in through there, and sometimes you're not going to get all of the copious amounts of fine detail. That comes later. Just keep that in mind. So now we'll come back in through here and we'll catch that hard edge. Sometimes when you need to catch a hard edge, I'll use a wide eraser. I'll use this Japanese mono eraser, just to keep that little edge sharp and there for a cast shadow against a form shadow, and just keep it very gingerly working across, and then we'll come down and find that shadow's initial shape and through here, right in through. We can ease into that form shadow there, cross on the back because it's coming across that erector spinae set of muscles. There we go. Now coming off the back a little bit into the rib cage on the left side, contouring around into the shadow shape here. We're getting close into the shadow shape, taking out the light, drawing with the eraser, and contouring too to get that shape. Now we'll come around the other way. See the stroking pattern I make? Sometimes it's hard to see because I don't leave them necessarily together, but now we can get that secondary read starting to come around and getting the atmosphere that we want, and also the volume that we want in a more minimal kind of effort. You can whip through drawings and get a nice sketch going in a minimal amount of time. But it is a messier, more difficult process to control if you're very early in the drawing state. But it's one that you want to be cognizant of and fairly practice in pretty early too, especially in basic type drawing, I think, as well. It will help. So I'm going to take this harder eraser. I probably wouldn't use it on my own, but I want you to see that. So, because this is a little sharper edge up against that little shadow of where the crease is of her leg or thigh coming into her abductor range, and that's going to create a little harder edge. So we can create that through here. I mean, I could use this for the whole thing, but it's going to take longer. It's going to be harder to control. It's softer. So, say for instance, I could come down here and keep on going with it and across. There we go. And that give you an even more kind of contoured, kind of feeling to it. And then we'll come across here. And around. And what you notice is everything back here is going to be in shadow. Because remember, this is your overall general shadow shape. When we add coarse shadow back here, that's going to give all of the rest of it reflected light. And then you can kind of really stay out of it. So it makes drawing in the shadows as we mop in with light relatively easy, and quite frankly, you don't want to belabor with this technique into the shadows, especially if you're drawing drawings that are 45 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, an hour. The detail is going to be, as a general rule, you can always break them in the shadows. Excuse me, the detail is always going to be in the light, not the shadows. I almost messed up my little mantra. That wouldn't have been good. So I can come in here and just get this hard edge cleaned out just a little bit for you, so you can just see that cast shadow. And then that cast shadow, see how it runs into the form shadow. So this is a harder edge here, and then it runs into the form shadow naturally, the leg over here that's receiving light from the top left and front. And so harder edge here, a little softer transition, and edge over here. Know your edges. And so I'll go back to a kneaded eraser, and I'll just take the rest of this off. So more detail in the light and more attention and focus in the light than in the shadows for now. Later on we can break those rules a little bit. So let's keep on going, have a little bit more for the block in, or the mop in, however you want to say it. All this is in shadow. So notice how I followed her here. Now I could come back I could have started up here with the hair with the harder eraser to get a little bit more of the sophistication of the hair rhythm, of clumps of hair. Those aren't one individual strand. Those are hundreds up together, just to get a little bit more of that. I don't want to get too detailed too quick. Remember, we're in a very general stage still of our figure, very general. And you could get some of these in through here if you want. I think you get the idea of that. It's not until quite deep into our drawing that we'll get into an even more detailed stage. So let's continue on with the mop in here, contouring around the back. There's a lot of little detail there I'm going to try to just go for and get this one little shadow shape where the erector spinae muscles kind of squeeze into the beginning of the scapula, kind of where the rhomboids are, right in through here, just to get a little bit more of a package in that shape, or a clear read on that shape. I don't know why I said package. There we go. Doesn't make any sense. I'm not the greatest at English, and yet it's my native language. Sorry. Oh well. Do the best I can. So we'll get that shape coming down, that kind of triangular shape there, and it gets a little softer, so we can come down now. See how it's very painterly? If you're familiar with painting a little bit, this technique is very popular with painter, figurative, kind of traditional painter type people, or who just do figure studies quite a bit with paint. We did this quite a bit in art school in Los Angeles. Here and up, and we'll turn a little bit. There's more detail here, but we'll get to that later on in a drawing. And then we're going to come up through there, catch that over. This kind of turns over. We can soften that a little bit. Keep the harder edge of the outline. Render now her deltoid coming across and over. Okay. So we'll get that working for us, and we know where our shadow shape is because we've delineated it, right? Okay. So now I'm thinking about a tube coming over, like so. And we're going to work that in. And we're going to tube over it. And it's like just using a brush. It's a very broad area, and you can tell where it's. If I can lift that up there, you can see that where it's a little dirtier. I like that because it doesn't take too much off too quickly. I'm all about incrementally getting into areas that I want in are going to need, and then lastly coming down the forearm, meaning that I don't want to get too light or too dark too quick. I want to ease my mind, my eye, into the process. And we'll come down to the thumb in through here, and then the hand, and get what we need. And we pretty much got just about the block in I'll need. I'm going to go and also catch a little bit of this background further. So I kind of moved my kneaded eraser just around a little bit to catch a cleaner edge, so I can take off a little bit more. And there are times when I keep it on the dirtier end when I want to take off a little less. The cleaner it will be, the ultimately more it will take off. And then the dirtier it is, or the more filled with charcoal material, the less it will take off. So I can take my mono eraser, my Japanese mono, M-O-N-O. Doesn't mean you'll get mono if you use it. Okay, that was a joke. Right. But you get the idea here. I'm going to take, the reason why I'm using it just for now is to get into that edge, because that's a molecular ending of her forms, right? So she's going to get, this reading on the model is going to be very hard edged in this area. And then I can use my kneaded eraser to come on down and get the bulk of that out, just gently, right? And then I can dexterous enough to just keep a hard edge against the flesh on the thigh, and also the this back area, but if you wanted to, just to show it, you could get this idea going. Do there, take off a little bit more, and keep a nice crisper edge of that. Then I can come around and catch a little bit later back in that line where that wall's going to be. Over through here, we can use line and tone together. Don't forget about the expressive quality later on of line. It's part of my job is to show you that later on. Okay, let's see. There's that line. Let's go ahead and erase that a little bit first, and we're getting pretty close to our nice finished blocking, and then we'll get to our core shadows. Take this out and over. A little bit lighter into here. Catch our edge. Continue to catch our edge when we need it. Running through here a little bit further. There we go, coming on down. Okay, and we can come across here and start to catch this in between negative space. I'll go ahead and do it with the mono eraser. You might like doing that quite a bit, I suspect, to keep that edge nice and tight. And through here, and I'm also trying to keep a little bit of background atmosphere rhythm. See this movement I've got coming too as well. I see a lot of students just kind of do it up or down, and we kind of want to give more feeling to it. It's a little bit more contoured for now. To change a lot of that. And so we'll dab away here at some of the movements, so the values here, if you will. Coming on down, and now we're at the area where we can catch that cast shadow. Up and through, and then you can catch a little bit more of the thigh. Turning like so. And we can catch that edge. If you haven't seen the basics, in the basics section where I do this with a still life, it's the same thing. That's the secret. Don't tell anybody. Shh. It's the same stuff, just working with a more complex set of forms with the figure. That's it. Concepts are same. The idea of additive, subtractive, and light and value, there's no change at all in that. So now let's come down here a little bit and let's capture now a little bit of the shadow shape. Since it's a cast shadow, it's going to be a little harder edged down in through here. Okay. So we're going to get that working for us. It's going to push that angle a little bit further. In the image, it goes a little bit below the thumb, mine's a little higher. That's totally fine. Those little changes, don't sweat those. Sometimes I'll get emails or I'll get comments, oh my God, you missed, that thumb is just not, it's slightly to the left or to the right. Well, does the drawing work? And that should be your bigger answer. If you're missing a big scale change, then we've got problems, but that's not a problem. Got to put a little contouring for that leg as it really changes, because it's all in shadow, but it's a block here and it turns downward. Okay, so we have that. I can clean that up later. And then we're going to taking my kneaded eraser here, working across the cast shadow from the buttock onto the white surface through here. Working that through nicely. This pose reminds me of a little of a Toulouse-Lautrec painting that's in the Orsay Museum in Paris, I believe so, where this figure, he's looking down on her just a little bit from her back, and she's in stockings and kind of at the bathing toilet for 19th century, and it's just one of my favorites of his. I've got a postcard of it. I'll pop it up on the screen. when I'm editing. So now we can see it. You'll be able to see it here, and it is just a lovely paint. This pose reminds me a little bit of what he was doing with that, and some of the stroking pattern we all get from Lautrec too as well. Really a dynamic and idiosyncratic and just a very different draftsman. We hadn't seen anybody quite like him before in art in that time. Very interesting figure in the art world. So we're pretty much, look at that, I think we have everything we need blocked in. I think we've got everything we want for our block in. What we've got is a clear pattern, right, of light and dark. I'm going to take this arrow out now. Of light and dark in our model. And we've got our model drawn in, and we know where the shadows are, and we also know where the light is coming from. And the next step is to go and add those core shadows to the model. So let's do that now. So let's think about rationally, or if you want irrationally, but if you want to think rationally, I suppose, we want to analyze the light sources coming from the left, top, upper, slightly in front of her. So all the core shadows will be on the right, slightly back, and also slightly underneath from the light source. That's a fascinating idea. So I'm sharpening this one little charcoal pencil. It needs a little sharpening too as well, to think about really the properties of light and the positioning of light. We've gone through that with some of the lectures, and you can kind of start to see that. So let's work on that. Now we're just thinking about core shadow now. Dark is part of our shadow, so I'll start back up in the hair, and really all up in here, just the core shadow would be right up in through here. You can see it almost as one value shift overall, but I would say that if we're just working on core shadows, let's simplify again this light pattern a little bit on her hair. Cast shadow, core shadow and cast shadow, and then up in through here. We just want to get where the core shadow would be in her mind. We know it's more of a complex arrangement, but right in through here, that's where her core shadow is going to land on her hair, right in through there. So as we start to come down the neck, we get a little core shadow underneath as she starts to turn. Okay, so she's turning underneath, her hair's turning, so we'll go and we'll find this shadow shape. It's a little bit harder, it was harder to do with an eraser. Up in through here, strands of shadow shape, but see how it kind of makes a bowl or under curve, right? And we can get that coming over, okay? And we can bring down some of the strand, but right in through there, there's where we want our shadow shape. Right up in through there is our core shadow of our hair. And everything else for now, I know it seems odd, it's going to be a little bit more in reflected light. And the reason why is we've already got a tone going for her. See how she bathes? She just pushes way back in light. Now we can catch a little bit of some shadow shape back in through here with this ear. Okay, a little bit here, and a little bit off into that little tuck of the area of the fold of the ear, helix. And just get those shapes, go a little bit darker for now. Keep it simple. We can get more complex later on. I see that, trust me, I see it. And the shadow shape over through here is kind of triangular, right in through here, over here. Just fill that in for now. Let's keep it just a general shape. Nothing too fancy for now as it hangs on her side of her head and then over. All right, we can start to catch now her neck. Pull that in front. Okay, so now core shadow in the neck. Here's a big one. So we're coming across right side of the neck. Okay, coming over. See it? Right in through there, gentle, cascading over the shadow shape. A little bit darker, and everything else back there is in reflected light. There's another area where her neck ends here. We'll delineate that so we get a little bit of a subform in there. So we want that, and then we tilt over, and there we are. There's her form shadow, or core shadow, excuse me, on her neck. So let's move down on the figure and go a little faster. Scapula area to the deltoid, up and through here. Remember, we just go, it's a very generalized still figure. There's a lot of steps to add for detailing later on. Right in through here, we see that form shadow, soft edge, cast shadow, pocket, a little bit harder. Get a nice little fold coming. First strong core shadow on the erector spinae, right in through here. We see that. We can start to get this nice sort of short-handed contouring. We call that the zigzaggy lightning bursts when I was in art school. We got that from Harry Carmian, was our professor. He did that. He did that in such a strong gestural way. It looked like these little comic book lightning bursts, but it worked. And so just this contouring for now around the model, up and over and through. You can bring it over more if you wanted. Okay, see that starts to really read her back. Turning, we get it changing here, cast shadow, and we get a little bit now. If we read this, the divot or the cavity of the spine coming through the spinous processes would be underneath of each vertebrae. And now we get this softening. See it right here where it's softer? That's a form shadow, and a cast shadow, a core shadow, excuse me, will need to be there. Right in through, because everything else will read as reflected line. And you can fade this. You only can put that in there and just fade it off into her back. Turn that form. You can fade it off into the back. Turn it, fade it a little bit. Look at that. Look what it does for us right in through there. Isn't that lovely? So now we can keep going. And through. Form shadow, core shadow. Soft edge for the most part. Softer. And turning the pencil to the side, if you can do that, really helps. If not, just use it as a pencil stroke. It's just a little harder, it takes longer. But it can be done. Okay, pocket is squeezing of the scapula, lower part of the scapula, into the erector spinae to torque her arm back into position there. Okay. Pocket of dark where they crease together, and through, and come together here a little bit. Okay. And we're going to get core shadow here, up the upper part of the back and through here. Find that shadow shape. Okay. The values are all about the same in core shadow. Some are a little heavier here. It's a little bit lighter. 7s and 8s in the value scale. That mid-tone value of additive subtract is about a 5 or 6. A little darker. Coming around. Core shadow right in through there. Then it gently fades pretty quickly and we get more reflected light, especially running through here on the model. A little bit more extending further. You get a little bit of a divot in through here. The muscle is, we'll leave that for now. Now coming back over here, we get a little bit. We're going to go ahead and we don't want to be too strict with our process, but we'll get a little bit of cast shadow. That's a little harder edged, right? You see that right in through there? That's being cast from the deltoid and arm onto her rib cage cavity or rib cage main bulky area. Right through there, so a little bit stronger. Through there, form shadow, core shadow. Fade it into the light, into the shadow and through there. Okay. All right, so working again this cast shadow up, and then we'll start to see where the core shadow is going to fall in this deltoid area, the shoulder area, and as it comes in, it's going to start turning. And so the stroking pattern you can use if you want, you could do it without it, but I like to use the stroking pattern of the direction of the form as it flows across the form and not at the length generally. Or you could do it the length, but I like to do the width of it just to get the bulk. Slightly different look to it at times. In through there, a little bit of turn on the back end of that shoulder and through here, and you want to let the reflected light show through. So again, the turn of that core shadow, where the darkest part of the shadow ends, and the light is beginning. It's going to be, again, it's going to turn into the shadow and be a soft transition in the reflected light, but also into the light. So it's going to be soft or blurry, very kind of almost out of focus a little bit, but it's a softer transition. Unless, of course, we're made out of blocks, which we're not. So we have this elbow region in through here, a little bit of the brachioradialis region of the elbow and the forearm a little bit as this attaches in through here. Reconnects back up through here. So just a very general now core shadow transition in through here, coming through over to the elbow, right in through here. We get kind of buried in the little dark area. Cast shadow underneath, so now we're coming in and over to where the elbow and the forearm meet the leg, and all this under here is cast shadow. So we know that because it's sitting on top of the leg and it's a little harder edge. This is going to get a little darker, and then darker by the leg, and then it fades out a little bit onto the thigh, so we get a little bit more atmosphere there. Then we can kind of turn it, and then as it ends, when it turns and makes that curve, you see that curve? That's going to be, that's going to start to be your form shadow. Excuse me, your form shadow, so we're going to get this turning, and it's not particularly too harsh and dark, but it's going to turn in the thigh a little bit in there. Fatter, thicker part of the thigh, we want to get a harder, crisper edge in the outer part of the thigh. In, over, in through, and around. And then we've got the core shadow in through there. A little bit of a bulk part down in through here where she's turning a little bit. Her thigh is turning, engaged in kind of a little bit of an arch or U shape. Okay, now let's go on now to the bottom part of the buttock. In through here, and we'll get just a little bit darker with the core shadow. It's a little bit lighter area, getting more reflected light, but we still want to turn it a little bit so we can see this idea of the blending of the charcoal coming in, right? And all this later on will be reflected light, which will get more complex later on. And then I'll talk about this cast shadow in a moment. We'll end up a little bit more in there with this block in. So, coming through now, core shadow here on the oblique area, and then getting into a little stronger area now, where it's darker and thicker, right in through here, so we can kind of initial kind of lay in, right in through, and then I'll start to work its shape and its thickness a little bit, and also its contouring. So it's turning in here, and it stays thicker. It's pretty bulky right in through here, so that's a real bulky area. The real meaty part, fleshy part of the back, and that back lat, and also the erector spinae region, and through there, as we come through, turn that. And so now we're getting it soft transition, turning it here. And a little bit darker, so the core of that core shadow, all this is a core shadow, that darker banded part. But again, the difficulty you might be having is just to getting it smooth and blended in both the reflected light and also into the actual light. Because all this now becomes reflected light. Whatever isn't core shadow is now reflected light. So we have a little bit of the spine coming down. I'm going to go a little further and just define this little dark cavity so you can see it right in through there, and then right underneath the buttock we get a little bit of a core off of the split of the glutes, the crack right in through there. There we go. So we get that, turn that buttock a little further, right in through. And I'm going to go ahead and start blocking in the further now, the cast shadow, which is a little darker on its ridged edge, out in here, and then there's a little reflected light in between, and then where it sits deepest next to the buttock, right in through there, it gets pretty dark. So we can see that as a little dark area coming down and underneath, and flattening out that buttock here, and then it really starts to hit up and turn up in there, so we get a little bit of a double, kind of a double shadow going, don't we? And then we'll push that in a moment. It comes up here a little bit further, right through here, and up and over. So now we can say, okay, how many core shadows do we have left? We're almost there. We can come over here and just curl around here a little bit further. This erector spinae muscle, or the sacrospinalis, just these strong corded muscles of the back through there, just to get a little bit further around them. And then up and through and over. And then I think we're ready now for the core shadows on as we finish our drawing and our video of this section here of the hand, of the arm. Now softly coming over. Soft shadow, so it transitions around, transitions around, transitions around. There we go. And we get that turn on the other side. Yeah, and then we see now with the elbow bulge here, a little condyle of the olecranon, that middle section. There we go. Up and through. And then we're going to get now the core shadow of this whole area, which is really the strongest part, is running through underneath the elbow and then downward. So let me show you that a little bit. And then we'll kind of just run this counter a little bit. See how I'm kind of cascading it around the form, just contouring it around. You can do it like this, make a little bit more of a stroke mark if you want. It's kind of a stylistic thing. So pull on that down in through here, and then we just start to hit the cast core shadow here, round of the hand, and onward there. And I'll just gesture that in the finger here and the finger, those fingers. That won't be that important for now. All right, so I think we've got most of now what we need in this part of this lesson, which is the lay-in, the entire, really the beginning of a drawing of a coarse shadow, because we've got a lot of things that are going to happen later on in our drawing for fine-tuning after we finish out with our coarse shadow. I'll just put a little bit to show you what can happen right in through here. But for the most part, we've now laid in using action, gesture, volume, and we've laid in our shadow shapes, right? And we've also now blocked in by separating the light and dark with the kneaded eraser, or the eraser. Got the lighter, defining the light, right? And then now we've laid in our coarse shadows. We've manifested them out. And then really the next step is to take and begin to really tweak the drawing and make it begin to get more complex. So there's a lot of complexity already, you could argue, going on, but there's quite a bit of opportunity to go further from that. That's going to be next, okay? All right, so let's go on to another. We'll use a different material and a slightly different process with that. All right, all right. All right, now for our next block in and coarse shadow study here. We'll pop up the image. We've got a toned piece of paper now. So I would say this is not a lot has changed technically, except that we have a toned piece of paper, obviously, but it's mostly an additive drawing where we let the tone of the paper be kind of right before the coarse shadow. And then, of course, when you add tone, highlights, etc., then you have to draw that because you don't have the white of the piece of paper. So we've seen that in other lessons in the past. Most of you probably know that. If not, go back in the basics section. Or you can see me do parts of the figure section where I do that as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the lay-in of our model here. So we've got a crouching figure to work with here. And we'll start the gesture and the head working in the model. We'll start and do a full drawing here. And then we'll work where we start to lay in shadow shapes and then block in those shadow shapes with tone, and then come back with a coarse shadow, which I might change color just for the sake of it and go with a darker tone if we can. Okay, working through here. Just getting our gesture in. Working through here now, I'm going to start to kind of feel my way through now the head region just a little bit, and that neck, trapezius area coming up. So coming over with a nice tilted head, crouching down, more athletic kind of pose. So get just the feeling of the head coming through. Profile. Kind of a blocky profile for now. Ovoid, kind of blocky. Using Carbothello, pastel type charcoal, turns a little bit different color, but for the most part they react a lot like charcoal does in terms of its softness and malleability. The The wax pencils I use, the Faber-Castell pencils, are a little bit more like colored pencil. They're nice too as well. But these are the Carbothellos. Feeling the shoulder now, up to the spine, shoulder here, over and around. Feel that side plane of the head, gonna feel that nose a little bit, and then the brow, and then the eye socket area, just to get a feeling for it. Not a lot of detail because a lot of it's in shadow, so we get really into specifics of the drawing for a while, good while actually. The chin over, kind of hidden in there deeply. The jaw coming down a little bit further, there we go. Coming over. And feeling a little bit of that pectoral in between. And this whole thing, volume-wise, is, and a lot of times I'll get this view where I see the deltoid. This whole area is kind of like a tube, a cylinder. See that cylinder kind of emerging in through there? I'll see that a lot of times it's like that. These kinds of views. Sometimes they can be blocky. Sometimes it can be more a cylinder. Now the spine comes through here, then starts to disappear and get into profile here along the back, into the rib cage, about right in through here and over, down and on through. Pretty slight. Bulge to the buttock there. You get that lima bean form even in these more athletic sort of bent over views. Here's that bean form here of the buttock. We cut out the leg from it and around and over and all the way through, and you get this shoulder as our bean forming through there. The gesture of the elbow, arm. Might have enough room just barely to get that through there. Just a gesture of that coming through, bicep. And then the bulge of the flexors and extensors, extensors and flexors. It'll probably be off, cropped off just a little bit with the hand in through there. Getting that trapezius, deltoid area. Fleshing that out a little further. Okay. This elbow will be up, raised a little bit, so gesture of the elbow here. And it'll push the arm out and over and down, so we'll let that fall. Gesture coming through here, the elbow and over. And then forward to the forearm. On through and down lower where it gets cropped off a little bit. Most of that's in shadow, so more of the big demo area is going to be through the torso and a little bit of the head anyway. A little bit of the hand, so we'll wrap this leg around a little further. Bring that over. This leg in, so you feel it coming through here and over to the knee. And then we have the calf in through here, merging with the other leg coming through, and the calf will come down to the ankle, to the start of the foot, through here a little bit. And then we can start to play off this hip a little bit, buttock, hip, coming in through, trochanter area about right in through, roughly in here where we see that. So we can get this leg, thigh coming in through here, And coming on down. Later on we'll see that emerge just slightly through the deltoid and the bicep area, running through here and over. We can connect that leg up, its back parts. Biceps femoris or hamstring area leg through. And then we'll get this foot coming back over to the leg, to the ankle. Out through the wrist, down a little bit lower now, coming on through. Put that knee a little bit lower to here. There we go. Yeah, we're a little bit past the buttock over here, the ankle. And there we go for a lay-in. All right, so let's see if we can get this a little tighter now. Coming through with the model, let's work on the head, tighten this head up a little bit. We'll come back now, and we'll get more of the cranium in through here. Driving over and see what kind of mistakes I made, and we'll correct those. There we go. So we're coming out to the trapezius muscle and through here, up to the back, proper. Deltoid shoulder region, not a lot hanging through, just a little bit. We can see that coming through a little, over through there. And we'll come back and catch the head. And side plane of the head a little bit through there. Pretty much okay with the brow region and the eye for now. The eye socket region and through there. The nose coming through. Pretty much okay with that jaw. Through here. Pulling that cranium through. So now we can also, if we're savvy enough, we can start to lay in our shadow shapes as we clean up our drawing. So the shadow now, the light source coming on to artificial and on top, over the top of him, you can see that. So the head now region, we'll see the beginnings of the shadow shape on the head right in through, roughly right where I'm marking it on the head, right in through there, coming through. So we can do that as we start to come across with our model and get a little bit cleaner with our drawing as well. So that we've got a little bit of the ear popping over here. Showing out right through there. There we go. Just kind of an ovoid shape for now, sort of a question mark shape. Little opening of where light's going to be, so we can delineate that little shape right into there later on. This little oval area underneath the ear a little bit further. We've got that coming through in the back, spine. All right, so let's get this underneath here. A little bit longer, so we'll come through with our neck. It attaches down to our rib cage. And then we've got the top of the shoulder into here. A little bit longer. Take that out. There we go. There we go to the deltoid. Now we can come across very nicely. Getting that shape of the muscle right in through there. Getting that form coming across over. What I'm looking for here now is all the way over, coming over here, where this lat is, the scapula area is right in through there. Not necessarily the shadow, but where the shoulder ends over in through here, right in through there. There we go, right there. And then we'll come on down. You can see that begins to get into a triangular shape here. There we go, around, and then we get a little pocket of where that clavicle, scapula, spine ends to, right in through there. We'll come on down. Now we can get this bicep. Into the deltoid, in through here, more softly, and then the trapezius area, right through there. On down to the elbow area, cross. Here we go. And then the forearm coming on down, and we'll let that crop down a little bit as we go lower. Head on out, through. Let's come back and grab the other arm now, coming through and up and a little bit lower as we see through. It can go a little bit touch lower with it. Through here, coming through now. And through and over. And we can get around here with the forearm, flexors and extensors. A little bit further down, further to where he's going to start stabilizing the body with the fist. That'll go even lower, down and out of the page a little bit, which is okay for now. Alright, so let's come back up. Let's come back up the back, through here and around. Feeling this around, and through here, up to the deltoid, or the shoulder, and out and over. We can finish this off with the midsection here where the lat is, the side of the rib cage, up and through. This will turn up and in, right in through there, to get to that belly pretty slight, right through there and over to the oblique, and then we get a little bit of the other side of the rib cage, profile center, right in through there, and then we can start to get that leg coming through. Quad muscles here. Through and over, more turn. There we go with the buttock. Back to the sacral area. There we go. And then again, here's a nice region where I can start to delineate where my shadow shape is going to be as I lay in. Do it a little bit quicker here and over through here. Cast shadow will be through here. You can start to do some of that pretty early if you want. Right through there. And that's a form shadow that ends and it gets bathed in cast shadow. Then it becomes all shadow shape in through there. So we see that emerge pretty nicely. Then we come into the hamstring area, biceps femoris, in through there. That's all going to be in shadow later. A little bit of lower leg. I think I'm going to, since I cropped a little bit more than I wanted, I think I'll just let this fade now. I'll do a little bit of this leg, and it's really about this upper area anyway. As the light source comes through, and just clean up here a little bit where we see our negative space coming through here. A little bit further. Looks a little bit better. And down. So I'm just kind of getting the profile of the leg. Not worrying too much about interior form. That's going to push this probably a little bit in and lower. So we're just cleaning up and correcting mistakes that we made. Calf in through here. Down through the ankle. And lower. That's going to disappear slightly behind that wrist. Then we'll start our ankle process here and over, and I think that'll be enough for there. So let's go find those shadow shapes distinctly now, and then we'll get even clearer with our drawing. So the trapezius muscle coming out of the neck, here you see it, and there's a shadow shape. Pretty much aligns with that stranding of the trapezius as it connects onto the clavicle and then onto the scapula coming over. You can kind of see it right in through there. And then there's this nice little shape roughly right here We see that, okay? Coming through, more scapula over through here, a little shape there, and then starting to come over, and that's when we have, see that undercurve right in through there, that's where we have another shadow shape. I'll give it a little contouring to form shadow, and then right in through here we see that shape. Shadow shape there. So now we're in this nice area of the back. I'm going to thin this out just a little bit as I see it working for me. And we get this major shape now. So turning here, up and through, there's a grouping running through there underneath and over. This is all on the lat now, latissimus dorsi of the figure, the side of the figure, shoulder down below, and then underneath. So we get a strong form shadow. All that's form shadow, and then we get a little bit of bulge in the oblique right in through there. Okay, and then we get strong cast shadow coming down now in through here, and the rest of it's form shadow. And that's pretty much it. We get a little bit on the bicep over here. Of course, we've already done the head. We get a little bit of form shadow now on the bicep, right in through and underneath as it turns into its bulky head, and maybe just a little bit we could go lower right in through there. So what I like to do, I'm going to come back now and take my dark charcoal, or just charcoal pencil, and start to tighten up the drawing a little bit further, and then we're ready for the core shadow to come on. Even before we block it, I want to go one more pass at it just to get it even clearer. I like drawing with a lot of times two different colors too as well. So we have that coming through. I think you'll be happier with the outcome as well, but you don't always have to. So we've got this shadow now blocked in, or line lay in. We're going to hit that. And as I come through now, we're going to start to block in as we tighten too as well. Hair. We've got that nice brow area, that divot of the eye sockets, which is going to come into the eye of the model, in through there, straight part of the brow, and then the nose coming in and over, down to profile the nose for now, and cheekbone roughly into there. Okay, and then just a symbolic gesture, the mouth area into the chin. Finish that up, that area in through there and over. Form shadow here now on the kind of the neck, and then cast shadow back now from the trapezius muscle over through here, and then form shadow back again and over to the neck. And now we can start to say, okay, I want to start to block this in with my tone and through here. So we're blocking in, kind of just pushing all that back, right? We see that push back in through here. And now we can go for our core shadow. We can start to see our core shadow even in his hair, the darkest parts of those shadowed areas. So in through here, and then that core shadow right in through here. Believe it or not, it's pretty dark here, but what we want to get is the darkest part of the core shadow, so we can blend that softly through and make a more reflected light. And then certainly we can come back later on if we desire, which we'll do in a different video, and we'll get to more refinement. Right now we just want to get into the shadow shapes, delineate through the block in or mop in, and then start to hit our core shadow, which is going to be here, darkest parts of our shadow. Not a complete rendering of the shadow, but the darkest parts of those shadows. So underneath here a little bit, catch that cheekbone coming down a little further in through there, core shadow, form shadow. Okay, a little darker in through here. We come down, and that trapezius can come over, and then we'll catch that deltoid further with our line. There we go. They can all be in shadow there. Okay, so now we're cooking, so we can come over. This is pretty much a lighter side of the model. Turning, turning, turning. Let that end. Okay. So now we're working pretty good. So now let's work up the back through here. We'll come up the back and through, making corrections where we need, kind of delineating that contour line. Okay, coming through down in now this negative spaced area where the pectoral is, pretty much a shape now. Through, and that can be just pushed back in shadow shape. Okay, we just block in, mop that in that number 5, value on the value scale. So if we're here at number 5 in our paper, then that makes our block in a little darker, probably 6s or 7s. And then if we go absolute lights with our drawing, we won't in this video, but then that would make this 0, right? So we're not there. We're only really going to be here and here. And then if we wanted, later on, coarse shadows are going to be in this region of value. And then absolute dark would be obviously as dark as we could take the drawing to, which will be right there. So we're roughly really right in that particular range. Get out the camera there, sorry about that. All right, so let's keep on going here. So coming over, working it through, we find that shadow shape now of the trapezius, the scapula area, upper back, and so we'll just fill that in where we see that. It's more of a shape now, and see how we can delineate where that trapezius muscle really works into the top of the scapula there pretty nicely. So we have that coming through and over. So we don't see a lot there. So I want to get to those shadow shapes underneath, then round to the deltoid, go a little bit darker there, and underneath, and we see the shadow shape here, this little pock, sort of an oval where the clavicle comes into the scapula, roughly, in through there. We can fill that in, and then we have a nice area for our shadow delineation here, which we've already done here. We can do that further. Okay, so we've got that. And now all of this is we're going to work in shadow. So we have that and over. Okay. And just let that go. Start to hit this in shadow. And I'll catch this arm now, bicep. Let it bulge in through here. Of course, that'll be cropped off. And we've got this little opening now in our drawing of this little area on the bicep and through here. So feeling this around in through, there's a little cast shadow in through here, just gingerly. Right in through there. And we've got most of this now as form shadow across the bicep. And this bulge in through here, down below, and then the rest of this, we can go ahead and pick apart. We'll leave the vein out for now, it won't be important now, but we can see this as another little bulge shape down in through here as a quick block in. And we'll just tone all this down, like so. And that gives us the reach kind of we want. Now this muscle through here, you can feel this coarse shadow down here, can't you? Underneath to the bottom part, since we're top lit, light source is up here at the top, right? So everything is shining down this way, okay? That means that these core shadows are going to be lower, always lower. You can kind of see it even on the ear over here where it creates a little core cast down below on the cheekbone. I want to get too detailed on the shadow because we really want to stay mostly out of the shadow, excuse me, I broke that pencil, until we get to more defined areas of definition. So that's important. So we want to stay generally out of, after we get our core shadow in, we want to kind of stay out of there for a good old while. So just keep that in mind as you're working. I think I've said that enough probably for you to remember that. All right, so as we move forward, we're going to come in here. We've got a good situation going now with our back. We can kind of get that scapula shape a little bit further. And I'm just kind of drawing the shape. It's more, again, more triangular. And as it starts to come back in through here, we're kind of start to roll over the model this way, if you will. Can roll through, soften this up a little bit. Then we can start to add this core shadow now a little bit further in the deltoid into here. Okay. Haven't broken my pencil in a while. That was the first one in a while, so it wouldn't be a drawing of mine if I didn't break some pencils for show. All right, so we get that. We get this deltoid split now coming up. That means basically this where this muscle starts to form here. You can see it go a little bit darker. I will draw this a little bit further. It's kind of important for now. Trapezius up in through here, that bulge, and then back on down to the elbow. Just to separate that for now, I'll put in a little bit here as an exercise. It goes into that tubercle and the humerus. And I think the rest now you get the idea, we can just kind of fade all this down just a little bit for now. And we see that sliver of the knee coming through, over patella region, and down and over to connect the leg. Just make sure they connect up. See how I draw through that just a little bit, that helps. And then we get over here, we can connect that tendon will show through just a little bit more than I had it through there, okay, and up. So now we've got a nice setup. Watch this. So from right where I start to make our lay-in of our shadow shapes a little bit more concrete with the dark, all that's going to be mocked in a moment. It's going to go super quick. Here, see it come down, form shadow, over to the leg, right through. Here's the actual leg, the thigh in through there. Three-fingered gap where it gets straight, and that's where generally where that cast shadow goes, bulges into that sartorius tensor fascia lata region, over cast shadow, and then we get this nice little bulge here of muscle. And that's where we're going to get a little bit more defined with that shadow shape in through there, then over. Okay, and we can start the kind of the contouring back of the buttock, just catch it a little bit here. This comes through and overlaps just slightly. The biceps femoris, back of the buttock and through there. Now let's catch this with our line. Here, put the lat up, curve it into that rib cage, lower pectoral to the rib cage, and then through, just to feel this out. Lastly, okay, there we go. So now we're ready for our block in. Okay. So we'll take that block in, and we know where our shadow shapes are. So now we're going to block in, or if you like mop in, I love mop in. So we're just going to mop all this in, and that value here, right here, that's 7. This is probably 8, and that's 10. That's 0. It's almost like 1. Let's make it 0. Let's make it really hot, hot, hot. There we go. Did I just say hot, hot, hot? I did, didn't I? Okay. Here and over. A little pocket of a little area underneath the back part of the lateral rectus spinae. So let's finish that block in. Here we are. Let's block in here. We'll take in maybe a little bit of atmosphere back here. We can do that. If we want, put this in shadow. And we're starting to get off to now the races here in terms of getting it all blocked in and also working out core shadows. So now let's go back and let's hit these core shadows up right in through here and go a little bit darker. Sometimes I just like to pick up my charcoal stick. Be careful with these. I generally don't like my students to do that. Maybe I shouldn't, but I am just for the brevity of the drawing. If you're not comfortable with it, you don't pick them up. It's okay. It can be a little challenging. So this can go probably a little slider in through here. Don't worry. Don't be afraid to make changes. Because a lot of times I'll get off camera and I'm like, I wish I would have changed this or that. Because sometimes I just want to get out of the camera. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but we can get a little bit more here. Now we can come across and get this core shadow in through here. Core shadow. So turning, fat part of the shadow, darkest part of the shadow, turning the model, turning the lights into the shadow, into the lights, right in through there, up and through, and around. This really wants to come over. See how that over finds its little pockets in through here. Lingers a little bit, pretty dark in through here. I'm in between 8 and 9, the value scale. Right in through there, through. Can turn this around a little bit. Feel that contouring of the back, right? Coming around a little further, if you will, in through there. Then it gets a little thinner, the core shadow. See it go up on this lower part of the lat, right in through there, and there's a little bit of reflected light on the lower part, right? Do you see that little pocket right in through there? So I'll show you that right in through there as it turns in, because this lat wants to keep going up through and over and end roughly here, because that becomes a little bit of the rib cage and the pectoral underneath it through there. So we get this nice core shadow. I'm going to go back to my pencil here. Core shadow. So I'll go both ways. I'll go a little bit more contoury, and then I'll go laterally to kind of blend it smooth a little bit. It's kind of a stylistic thing, very academic kind of drawing. So sometimes I look at these academic drawings and I thought, it's really not me. It's more of a teaching style. Sometimes it's weird to see. Other people, that's their style. They want it to be. I'm not really an academician, but I do teach it. Core shadow here, do you see it bulge up and over? This oblique area comes through, it's sort of form shadow, then it gets to be a cast shadow too. It takes us deep within the back pocket of the model there to the inside the oblique area. This can come down a little bit through there. Okay, we'll pick up this leg. It's hard to see through there, and sometimes you can just leave it right in through there. And let's catch now this cast shadow here. Cast and form come together. You can see that a little bit. It's where the cast shadow wants to do this and hang out from that back a little bit. So it erodes the form shadow in the shadow here a little bit. So you have to be careful of that. You're getting some anatomy coming through here with the rectus femoris. Right in through here, can give that a little bit of attention, not a whole lot, it's not that important. So we have that, and then let's come over here and grab these shadow shapes. Let's make this a tighter edge, harder edge, because of the cast shadow. We see that crease through here a little bit, and then this softens up a little further, where that's a form shadow right in through there. Catch this underneath. The undergirding part of the belly. And then now we have these beautiful form shadows on the buttock and through here. So this is all not one value on the model. I've got to be able to get you to see that there's a little separation, and you can push that as an artist. You can make it more than what it is, more contrast of the core shadow or less so. And you can do that in your lighting of the model if you want, or you can do it in your mind on the drawing. So we'll get this core shadow in through here. Kind of let this fade. I like the little mark strokes, so I have to go back and catch those a little bit, but it's up to you. Kind of a style thing again. And then we'll let the core shadow fade a little bit. That gets more reflected light coming over, getting the rhythm of the core shadow. We want to keep the rhythm going. It's kind of a curved arch in through here. And over. And through this bulge. There we go, coming over a little bit of a ridge bulge there. Okay, and then we could come on down, catch that muscle. That's pretty much it. You can define this a little bit further if you want, kind of a strong muscle coming through. We've got almost everything we need right into there. I might take a little bit out of here after that ridge. Take my eraser to catch a little bit of that shadow coming through for his leg and through his buttock. And I think that's what we want to get out of this lesson with this one is we've got our lay-in of shadow shape, right, and our block-in of shadow, our mop-in. And then we hit our core shadow on a toned piece of paper. Really the next step, what is the next step? I'm not going to go through it. We're going to go on to another one. But the next step would be to begin to delineate, clean this area up in the lights, and begin to render detail, all this little detail in the light. Spend a good deal of time having a lot of fun with that and finishing out a nice sketch, academic, traditional, Renaissance-esque kind of sketch of what we see with our model. We can put a little atmosphere to kind of clean all this, put it into a tonal bath, if you will. I think all this looks pretty good. Okay, all right. I think we've got everything we need out of here. If anything, I might soften this up a little bit, make this shape a little bit more specific. So it's all about finding those shadow shapes, isn't it? And then just knowing that your core shadows are going to be darker than your reflected light, your tone, and that's going to give you that reflected light too as well. Of course, there's still a lot of steps to go in this drawing, but this gives you that intermediate. This is kind of the intermediate part of a drawing after you get the core shadow. A lot of people just leave it like this. It's kind of a shorthand drawing, which is totally fine too if you wanted. So FYI. So the head's a little small, I noticed. So I'm going to go back and say, what do you do with that? How do you adjust that? Pretty easy. So what we can do is watch this shape in through here. It's pretty okay here. It leans a little bit too much here. So a little thicker at the top, right in through there, then downward. Okay, so we can just take that, or you can erase it out. A lot of times I don't even erase, I just adjust. It's not a big deal. So we can take that out. So we've already got that in light. Got that going for us. Okay, we're heading through here. So already that cranium is nicer and through. Okay, and then maybe put a little bit more now on the profile region of it in through here. So we'll come across and take this over, okay, in through. And we'll put a little bit more on the nose. Right in through there, since there's not a lot of detail right in it right now, so we can make some changes to make this a little bit larger compared to the body. So it's adjusting the width of both ends of it a little bit. So nose here. Bring that bicep in. I think I'll erase a little bit through here. There we go. And then we'll take that nose out and down to here, and on around. Okay, put the bicep back about right through there. It works through. And come down the shaft of the nostril a little bit, right in through there, and then we'll bring that mouth muzzle where the mouth lips are right through. About through there, and then we'll have to extend the chin out a little bit further, and I think we'll be fine running through this. So that brings that head, you can see that a little bit, certainly a little bit more into alignment with the rest of the body too as well. So all right, I think we've got everything now we need out of our drawing. So we laid in, we did our action gesture, we thought through our volumes and solids, right? And then we started to find our shadow shapes, to find it further, the little change in material, right, and color, tone, if you will. And then we laid in our core shadow and then refined our drawing further, cast shadow, core shadows, and really began to solidify our drawing. Next step will be to start to refine and spend a lot of time refining into the areas where we want to be in our drawing to get into a more I won't necessarily say tighter finish, but certainly a finish, if you will, which will go beyond this. For a lot of people, this can be a sketched finish a lot of times, which is totally fine. So something to keep in mind. All right, so I think the head adjustment works pretty well. So I think we're just about there if we want to be with this particular sketch. All right, for our last core shadow study in this section of the figure, we're going to work on tone paper. We're going to add additive subtractive to it as well. So it's kind of a double tone. It makes a nice different atmospheric quality. So to get started, I'll take a charcoal stick and rub this down a little bit on the paper here, and then we'll take our chamois, and we'll smooth this tone out, and then we'll start to draw on it, and we can lift off on this material just like we've done on prior additive subtractive drawing on white paper. This time we have a blue tone. So, you know, depending on the color that you choose, that could be a real interesting, integral process to your drawing practice. It'd be a lot of fun too, and you get different kinds of different looks to these. All right, so let's do one more sketch. We're going to do a head drawing. And so we're going to concentrate. Our goal here is to concentrate on the lay-in of the shadow shapes, then the blocking, which we've done, we know, and looking for and analyzing the core shadow on the model that we draw on. All right, so reach over here and get this little brush, get all this cloth off here a little bit. It makes a nice kind of tone, has a bluish tone tint to it as well. So when we lift off, I'll show you like a rocket. When we lift off, instead of just the white paper, it has a bluish tone. Hopefully that can come through in the video. If not, I'll adjust the color to make sure that's coming off a little bit different. So a slightly different process, and I think quite a nice one too as well. So I'm going to work in charcoal. Go back to working in charcoal on this particular paper. All right, so here we go. We've got the image popped up. So again, we're going to take this to the core shadow stage of our drawing. So we're going to analyze our head here. Position really tilted over nicely. Coming down. Very eggish kind of top to it, about right in through here where it tops out. Down lower. And then we get this forehead coming down, so very strong tilts on the head through here, forehead, and then we get the profile tilts. So it's tilted way down. Kind of a straightish profile for now. And we'll feel that chin about right in through, ear turning. Feel that chin turning in through and then back over. Feel that mandible jawbone coming on through. Okay, up and over. A little bit more of the cranial structure. Turn in through there, and then we'll indicate the neck. Down in through shoulder as well, roughly right in through. And here I'm going to push this up just a little bit. There we go. I can see that. Sorry for the shake. Just indicate the shoulder for now. Get clear on that. A little bit more of a tilt here. Coming through. Indicate the neck. And then a lot of this is going to be in shadow shape. I'm going to pull in that sternocleidomastoid gesture from now here. And then roughly coming in through here a little bit. It kind of ends with a shadow shape. Just have enough on the paper. Sometimes I crop out when I don't really want to, but here and over. Get that shadow shape coming on through there. All right, so now let's work with head structure. So we'll find our center line, which is going to be pushed over pretty good. Roughly right in through here. So center line coming through is not quite in profile, almost in profile, but not quite. You can see that through there. We're going to find that brow line. Nice curve, roughly in through here. So really arched and curving over. Find that. Kind of coming through. We'll get that really strong brow part coming off that. There we go. Find the nose and through there to the brow. And we can start to also get some structure of the shadow shape. Get that in together, kind of an upturn here, and the downward part of the brow and over. And I'm going to throw in the side plane of the head. It's kind of really where the shadow kind of ends here, where I've got it kind of a triangular part. But right in through here, I just want to see that. I always tell my students we need to find that side plane. Pretty high cranial, really high as it tilts pretty low down in through there. So shadow structure here in the eye, brow here coming over, and then the forehead in an over. We'll just capture that into a shadow shape, simplify that over to a pattern. Then I'm going to catch his hair shape in that, coming off that, up and over. There we go. A little bit higher, really pointy through this way, and then coming over we'll get the kind of balding here. I understand that quite well. Through. Okay, so we have that. And all this is going to be in tone anyway, so I'll leave that shadow shape. Now we're going to come back and revisit the brow here, and going to have this brow raised up through to the brow, and then closer to temporal ridge, roughly right in through here. Okay, and then we get this little area of zygomatic temporal region, and it starts to open up. It gets us really close to almost the ear. That'll be pushed back a little bit further. And we're going to follow that cheekbone shape, like part of the zygomatic arch, as it starts to come on down. Follow that shape and over. So it's almost like, sunglasses. We come into here and it tells you a lot about the structure of the head with following the shadow shape. If you get the shadow shapes right, so combining the shadow shape and the structure, you're going to get a nice volumetric head going. So we'll come over here, and then we'll come around, finding those two-dimensional shapes here, which makes this go a little faster. And through here, so it's kind of like a mask, the way he's kind of set up. I feel like this can go even more arched up, raised up with the eyebrow. Don't forget, don't be afraid to change. sometimes I go back and I look at my drawings. I'm like, well, you know, I wish I was still back on camera. A lot of times I just try to be done with it and I'll make changes. You can still make more changes. So don't be worried about not getting everything perfectly exact. Part of that's the process of drawing, and it's okay to be human and change things too, as long as they're not way out of whack. Cheekbone through there. So we have that. Now, coming back over, I just kind of grouped all this together. I'm going to continue on with the cheekbone a little bit downward, like so. Okay, and we're going to find this cheekbone here angled and then downward here. Okay, so we find that as we come back through the process of finding his jaw and cheek together and over. Okay, we're pretty close in through there. That tells me where that mandible is. I could come back and over. It's like I've got a stronger line. That's for the end of that mandible in that shadow. And up through and over. Kind of is going to get me closer to the ear. So that earlobe, if we draw a horizontal alignment line underneath it, it is pulled in about where the end of the the eye socket shape is. So that's where the lobe starts, about right there. See how we do that? Because we got a tilted head and almost profile, so we have to use horizontal and vertical alignment to help us with our perspective. All right, so we're coming up here. We're going to come off the profile of the back of the head, up, okay, and around, and then over. Okay, feels pretty good with the height, and then back around, and then through and coming over, attaching to the skull. And then going on in through the shape of the ear. I'll get the detail of that in a little moment, a little bit more. I'm going to grab the back of the neck, the trapezius and the sternocleidomastoid, right in through there, then over, and then grab the trapezius now proper back here, and it's got a little arch and curve, and it's going to come down as it ends, and then we'll get to a little bit more of the deltoid a little bit later, because this will curve over. And we'll take into account these muscles here. And then we'll get into the sternocleidomastoid, indicated a little bit further with bulges, out a little bit more. It's pretty buried in that shadow until it gets down to the sternum and the clavicle here. We'll pull that jaw just a little in front of the ear. All right, so anatomically correct, more correct. And then we'll pull that down, bulge, and then it tends to get thinner. Right in through. Now we're cooking. So now we can come down with the jaw here, down lower, over and through, and then it starts to peak and begin to turn and flatten through here, and then we're going to go back into space. So we turn around and come up the model this way. So we'll take on that, and then we'll let that fall in through there. So now we're going to recapture a shadow shape of our jaw in through here. It really pushes pretty far over, almost to the edge of the zygomatic arch in the temporal region. I'll grab his handlebar sideburn here, just so we have that kind of down flowing. Very cool. Works for his style. Look, I mean, yeah. Okay, a little bit of the jawbone structure through there. Working with the structure a little bit more, and also the shadow shape. So shadow shape, on over. Okay, now I'll grab the ear shape. I'm just drawing the shadow shape of the ear. Here, it's following along the top part of the ear, and it's going to fall away. Roughly right in through there. Get this head back to here. Work on this head a little bit, very pointy. Okay, here. Just going to find these shapes through the ear, which kind of takes on the anatomy a bit through there. Going to have a triangle, then a curve over to the ear canal. Get through there, over. Go up and around. And take on most of that as a shadow shape. Just kind of curving through there. Okay, so I'm simplifying that ear to mostly shadow tone for now. And cut. Let's see what I've got left in terms of time. Okay. About 5 more minutes. Okay. Goodness. Okay. And 3, 5, 4, 3, 3, 2, 1, and go. So coming along the cheek here. Okay, gonna find a little shape in through here. It's a real tiny little part of the cheek. Back up to the nose through here. So we're gonna start to find that nose. So we'll find there's about halfway down from the eye line curved about right in through the bottom of the bottom nose to help us out through here. So we'll find that. We'll come back and find our nose. A lot of times I'll just give it a straight line to begin with until we find out where we want to be with it. Let's tilt it a little bit, like so. Get the bulbous part of the septum nose and a little bit of the slight bulge out. And then we're going to come back in because it's going to have that nostril. But I don't want to get all that. Okay, we're going to keep this simple. This is shorthanded and keeping this into a shadow pattern. And we can get detail on the shadow when we need it, or you can just leave it. So now we'll come back. We'll get the lower part of the septum into the philtrum area. We'll get the top of the lip. Okay, lip coming in for the top here, finding that shape. Bottom lip bulges back out and around, back out and around. Okay, like so. Angled in. That's going to pull in way over to the center and beyond and curl. See how that curls back? And let's take a look at our chin. We need to go maybe a little bit lower. Now it's pulled. See how it's still pulled on that diagonal here, down maybe. Well, if not, we're really close. I'm going to leave it for now. We're pretty close there. So there's an opening here of shape, a light shape, that we can see that. We can use that. There's your light shape in through there. Okay. So we have that, and then we're going to have now the bottom of the nose, the top of the greater alar cartilage and the harder cartilage there, also known as the nostril. We'll get off the anatomy part. Sorry about that. And then right in here the shadow, and in the top where the nostril ends here, get that shadow shape. Up and over, enough to just indicate what's going on with that nostril, then around. It's like cut out paper, dark and light paper. So we'll come over, just defining that into the nostril, then the cast shadow over it. So we're grouping cast shadow. This is really about core shadows and also cast shadows, this whole thing, by the way, FYI. Should have made it a little bit more clear, really just blocking in the shadow and then hitting that core. And then we're down and over. Then we get that lip. It's pretty much in shadow, curled back over here and then downward. And it gets pretty complex. So we just kind of keep it simple and then let that be what it is for here. And then we can grab, pretty much just keep everything in shadow. I think we've got everything now. What we need now is come back and find the shoulder through all that, run in through there. And then we can come back down and over, and I think we're pretty good there. And all that's going to be later on a lot, a little bit of that deltoid turning, like so. And I think we're I think we're pretty good. Now we're ready to start erasing out. So you get out your trusty erasers, and now we can start looking through this material and start to erase out the major areas. So maybe we can start out with the forehead here. Take that on, excuse me. Take that on. You can see how we can open that up now. See how that opens up nicely. It's really like a painting. This next step, come down, I'm just gently easing it through, kind of finding the contour and keeping in, blocking in, mopping into the light so we can get the shadow pattern. So it's kind of, again, the reverse of all that. So come down, get that shape, forehead shape. You can see where you've already delineated where that's going to help, right? Right in through there. And back over contouring again. I just like to keep the stroking pattern here. Very contour-esque as we come out of the hair. Very wispy hair, so you can keep this very soft. Later on you can really delineate that with more detailed drawing, which we won't get into at this step. You know, a lot of people email me and YouTube land about hair and drapery. We'll get there. Be patient. Be patient. We'll get there. Promise. There's really no difference. It's all about light, value, edges, and contrast. That's the secret. But people want to see it, so they need some help. I totally get that. So we're coming down, kind of the stroking pattern. If you look at the wrinkles on the forehead, it's kind of, if we dig into here, we can get the stroking pattern of just the general part of a lay-in of what he's got going here. He's giving us, everybody gives us something in their being. Everything has a beautiful, mostly a beautiful kind of form. Unless you're Donald Trump, then you're not beautiful. One little political thing, sorry about that, I had to get that in. Over, we're gonna find our way through here to the forehead. Just gonna clean this out softly, not trying to take too much out. Up and around and over and through, and then downward. Then I'm gonna go to a little smaller shape in here. And so you notice how deep the eye shadow is for the sockets of the eye, how that makes a really cool sort of mask look to it. So we got the nose, shaft of the nose, how square it is. We'll get to that all later. Right now we're just taking out light. So it's still kind of a flat drawing, but it has luminescence light to it. So we have our nose here, cheek turning into here, and over. We're getting into that cheekbone, zygomatic arched area through here. And the more you kind of twirl this thing around, you can clean it out a little bit. It gets more of the material off if you want. Sometimes if you leave it a little bit dirtier or stained, it takes less off, so you can get different little slight value ranges, which is kind of nice. So we've got that going on. We can touch the ear here, go up through, top of the ear, like so, and then the bottom. Ear coming down below gets pretty tight in there, so we can take a mono eraser, Japanese mono eraser. Clean it out for its general shape, and then we'll get more detailed when you need to. Quite a bit. We're going through we're going through drawings really quick. These can take several weeks or several days. These are pretty much everything on the drawing base is very much academic teaching based, so it's generally not finished stuff for the most part. You can come in here to the ear a little bit further. Okay. See how fast that goes, and it gives you structure when you get the shadow shapes. But in order to get the shadow shape structure, you have to have an inherent knowledge and some experience with head structure. That's the rub. So yeah, I can get it where if you think that can be tough, it is difficult, and this comes up with experience and time for sure. All right, filling in that shadow shape here, around. Okay, and we're gonna go now for the nose and mouth area, very subtle. Just gonna clean it out a little bit, keep it simple, a little bit of a undertow right in through there. A little bit more down in through here. We've just about got everything we need. We can start adding more to this drawing and then hit our core shadows, which is our point in our next part of this. So let's also get the shoulder now, so we can see where the ending of the shadow is here, and then over on the neck, and then we can start to get the rest of this out on his trapezius and his deltoid, and we'll leave that little shadow shape, gingerly located, very slight. There we go. All right, so now we're in the stage of, I'm going to take a little bit out over here, a little light, just to lighten this up. Since it's on the back side of the head, just a little bit for now. There we go. And now we've got our block in, so we're past our mop in or block in stage, and you know what comes next. Comes the core shadow. So let's analyze our drawing for the lights. Let's see that happen. Okay, let's add the core shadow now, and so we can start to give this the next step along the way. So again, it's very much like an additive subtractive drawing, isn't it? But it's got that bluish, kind of nice blue tone, and it gives you a little bit of a different take or different look on this particular technique, excuse me. All right, so now working with a little bit of the tone of the hair, we can start to work here, keeping this drawing to a very kind of, core add-in and intermediate kind of finish. I want to make sure everybody understands that that's kind of where we're at. We're not in a fine finish. All right, so working down now, we're going to start to now come across the head a little bit, a little hair in through here, a little bit balder area right in through here a little bit, and then we're going to come over. Now, what's interesting about the head is that it's got darker hair, but the core shadow of the hair, I'm going to draw a little bit what you don't see. The core shadow of all this is about right in through here. So if I'm drawing core shadow, and not going to mess with more of this tone, it's going to be about right in through here. It's kind of a ball or a box or an egg, kind of an egg form. So there's the core shadow, right? See it right in through there? That's where that's going to fall. And look how that just gives it a nice sense of value, and volume, using the idea of value as well. So the hair ending is about here. They're about the same value. The skin tone's a little bit lighter. So we'll come down a little bit, and then we'll start to get this core shadow over here on the side of the head, right in through here, in through there. And what we start to see is a little bit of core shadow and cast shadow here on the brow ridge as this kind of softly goes under. And we can stay away from a lot of that detail in through the eye area, but we can add in through here. And we're going to group that cast shadow, since it's a harder edge, coming up on the nose, brow brow of the nose, that front plane of the nose, in through there and over. It gives us that nice turn, and we can hit this shadow a little bit harder or darker with our shadow tone and through there. So it gives us still almost kind of a sort of a graphic read, but with more volume. There's a lot, quite a lot more volume to it. Coarse shadow here on the ear, coming down, running through there, and all that fades into reflected light. So you can see how a kind of a shorthand sketch we can get out of this technique of just hitting our coarse shadow and then leaving it, but there's a lot more. And in the videos to come at the drawing database here and for YouTube land and for my students will be to put all this together. Longer poses, they'll be quite long, but we'll put it all together with a full value finished kind of look. Coarse shadow here in the zygomatic arch, the cheekbone, side plane of the head, right in through here. So it wants to come in, and then other the cheekbone as it starts to really begin to turn. You can kind of turn that a little bit. I'm going to finish this out a little, and then I'm going to add a little bit of the brow as we would see it end here, so you can kind of feel that through, and then where the ball of the eyeball starts to emerge underneath, right in through there, and get the feeling of that material. And you don't have to add a lot of detail just to get the essence of where the eyes form. And so that's already starting to come out and look like a fully formed, drawing in a kind of a general sense. So here, and a little bit of the underneath of the folds of the eye through here. So just an indication up and through there. I'm going to come back and grab the brow of the nose just a little bit further. Down and through. The cartilage side of it to the nostril. Coarse shadow, a little bit stronger and through and around and over. And then we'll have a coarse shadow here on the nostril. And we can let everything sort of fall in and cast shadow. That can be just kept as a shape nicely enough. And then we have some coarse shadow here on the side for the tip, bulbous septal tip of the nose in through there. So we have that going, and then we can come down and catch coarse shadow here on the cheek, right? Coarse shadow here on the end of the cheek, maxillary area of the mouth, kind of the ball, maxilla in the underneath core and everything. And here it acts as reflected light. Let the tone of the paper do most of the work for you. Coarse shadow here in the jowl, little extra skin hanging over as we get a little bit older. Here, easy to hit that shape in through there, and then we can start to hit underneath here the chin, under through coarse shadow, right in through here, cast shadow. Let's get back up into here. Take that, and we can start to gather these lips a little bit further. Turn that through. Keep those relatively simple-esque in through here. And there'll be a lot of detail still left over to do in the line especially, but that's not our major concern. Our major concern right now is coarse shadow and what that pop or that light transition of volume and value and structure that the coarse shadow starts to give us. Now all this is a little bit darker. I'm going to leave most of it, but catch a little bit of definition after the sternocleidomastoid into the clavicle area, just a little bit further, and then right in the cavity between it, here of the neck, down through the neck region, underneath here, and then we'll get that to turn a little bit further, just to go a little bit darker. You can be very loose with it at this point, if you want to. You can stay loose, very painterly throughout. We'll turn this a little bit. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell of what we can do with that. And then later on you can say, okay, no, maybe this is going to get darker, and keep that lighter on the side, and things you can do with it. But now you're really set up for the next stage, which will be to add detail on the line, really noodling out these values. You can come back and I'll go a little bit darker here so you can see it, just the hair. But generally in this step, what I show my students is that really the power of coarse shadows and what they do for your drawing. Okay, I think we've got everything we want there out of this drawing for now in terms of this technique. So I think that's enough now for the idea of coarse shadows, and then the next time I make videos will be to put it all together, and we'll do really long poses where you can see the process from start to finish in noodling out quite a bit of detail. It'll be fun. Go to a more finished. And then after that, once you get past that kind of the finished stage, you can start talking about, okay, style and expression and what do you want to do with all these techniques that you're starting to learn and hopefully master over time. Give it time. This takes years. If you get frustrated too quickly, be careful on that. This takes quite a bit of time, so just settle in for the long haul of it. Okay. All right. So maybe a little bit of light on this side. You can take that and say maybe we want to come back this way a little bit. Maybe a little bit of light, especially back up and through here. It's a possibility. You could do so much with the atmosphere later. So again, additive, subtractive on a toned piece of paper. Nice, interesting, slightly little change. And of course, you could take a piece of white paper and tone it with watercolor or acrylic wash underneath, and then do something like this on top of it. Plenty of my students do that. I've done that over the years, and myself when I was a student. Depends on what you want to do after that. Okay, catch that edge a little bit. Okay, I think we're there. All right. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.